Yeah, you know what that is? That's the Sepia filter, the civilized country. That's putting down Mexico with that Sepia filter, the way that we always look at Mexico as this dark yellow country, right? And it's the same thing that we do to China. And that's why X and shit like that and Meta hate the influencers who frame China as just like this ultra developed country that has high living standards for lower class people. Obviously, China has its flaws too, but you see it through the way that they put the sepia filter. I'm using the term sepia filter that typically only applies to Mexico because it's literally a sepia filter. So this is what's happening. It doesn't bode well for countries in the global south who are liberal democracies like Chile or El Salvador. What it does really benefit in this new developmentalist type of capitalist system is the countries who have the fucking legal system to prevent hyper-exploitation. Colombia, Brazil in a way because of Lula, again, not perfect. And then Mexico. The reason why Mexico, like we've seen inflation defeat all of these incumbent presidents throughout the global south, throughout America. Inflation has turned the political spectrum further and further right. Why hasn't it happened in Mexico? Because Mexico, under AMLO's party, has laws set up where they're becoming a more and more social democratic country. And the way that they are doing it so that it's not framed in like a ideological framework is that they're continuously using the language of capitalism. The Morena, they're not communists, but they're also not anti-communists. Scheinbaum is a fucking red diaper baby who is the daughter of communists. And she is a left-wing environmentalist, but she also knows how to play the game. And the game is you have to do developmentalist capitalism to make the framework no longer about an ideological struggle. Mexico has set up a whole bunch of new laws over the past, like since 2016, since AMLO, that has made it so like foreign investment is harder and harder to come in, and there's more and more like of a social welfare system that is picking up Mexico in their quality of life. Similar to Brazil, their fucking foreign policy isn't amazing because they have to keep a block on immigration because they are legitimately being threatened by a true imperial force. And that's the thing, is that Scheinbaum has a 78% approval rating as a Jewish woman in a highly conservative country. And it's not because he has ideological affinity for her base. It's because she's making people's material conditions better. So people who are socially opposed to her and what she represents can't help but vote for her because the opposition would make their material conditions worse. And it's like, oh my God, can you imagine? Can you imagine transcending politics to actually just matter about your material conditions and that these fucking virtues actually don't mean shit? But in our politics, virtues mean everything. The reason though why that Mexico has such a shitty foreign policy on immigration and stuff like that is because they have an actual imperium against them, and that's the United States. Trump has declared like a national emergency on the southern border. This labeling of Mexico and Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorists is a policy that will manage to be both cartoonishly evil and comically stupid, which again is a hallmark of American imperialism. On its face, it's sold as like a tough on crime bravado, this bold new strategy to protect Americans from the Scrooge of the drug cartels. But when you peel back like even just a single layer, you find the same old American imperial playbook, which is an self-inflicted problem dressed up as an excuse to wave their big imperial stick around. Foreign terrorist designation, this idea of calling cartels terrorists, is going to unlock a magic toolbox that will be able to freeze their assets, stiffen penalties, sanction, and of course, military operations in Mexico. It sounds very cool if you're a fucking idiot who thinks drones solve problems, but that's the thing, is that that's very large amount of Trump's base. And this is the thing too, is that these cartels don't operate like Al Qaeda, and labeling them as terrorists isn't going to change the fact that they're deeply embedded in the American system. And it's again another instance of Trump taking his pigs from the market and bringing them home to slaughter, because if he does what he says he's going to do, he's going to unravel all of these FBI and CIA relations to these drug cartels who have been helping them since their dominance in South America. It's not a bug. of global capitalism. It is the feature of American imperialism in the global south. And calling them terrorists and freezing their assets is not going to change anything. And it just really reeks of finding a new way to vilify Mexico. He spent his whole campaign painting Mexicans as villains, whether they were rapists or criminals. And now they're being framed as like the foot soldiers of a drug terror axis. And it's really just political theater that will shift the blame for America's problems, America's imperious influence in the global south that is causing all of these problems that he's claiming are coming up to the United States, the opioid epidemic. It all is meant to create this external other that shifts away the attention from finding the real culprits like Purdue pharma executives and countries that incentivize pharmaceutical investment and stuff like that. Like here in Canada, decades of hollowing out labor markets, hollowing out a healthcare system, all of that you shift the blame from by doing this wag the dog type thing, by blaming cartels, because nothing says accountability to US citizens like blaming the supply chain while ignoring that you are the demand for it. So this idea of the US's military action in Mexico, I think if we just pause to appreciate like the sheer hubris of thinking that this is going to end in any way that's going to be positive. The US has an amazing track record in America. Just ask any country that we've helped deeply destabilize in the name of fighting communism, drugs, or installing liberal democracy, or whatever else was convenient at the time. Mexico is a country that is ravaged by cartel violence and corruption because of the United States. And are they supposed to benefit from this additional chaos of American intervention? No. But sure, let's send Hellfire missiles into Sonora and see if that helps things. What could go wrong? Again, this is another just a classic example of how it's going to shift what should be one of America's closest allies, a labor force that could help lift America out of its economic issues if it had cooperation with them, further towards the opposition of global hegemony. Watch how fast Mexico is integrated into the BRICS economy. And that's the thing, is that the irony of all of this is that the cartels would not be half as powerful if it wasn't for the US and their imperial forces. From the US military's insatiable appetite for drugs to financial institutions happily laundering cartel money, the real enablers are obviously on Wall Street, not in Mexico City. And Trump's plan here really doesn't touch on any of that. It's much easier to just bomb or invade someone else's country than to clean up your own. So yeah, in the end, I think this isn't really about solving the drug problem. It's about theatrics. It's about a guy who has built a fake university and steak brand, pretending that he's the world's toughest cop, but not for geopolitical reasons, going after the bad guys in a new framework that they've created that will be more and more acceptable in a manufactured consent way.